It is daunting to look at the mountain that we have to climb. Look, in North America, there's not a professional sports team that is in more crisis than the Tampa Bay Rays.
Wow.
We didn't think there was a pathway forward here in Tampa Bay. We were looking at other teams. We were looking at other opportunities.
As far as the stadium goes, Ybor, Fairgrounds, HCC, move it to Orlando.
We needed to be really honest with the community. We don't have time to waste. We intend to open a new ballpark by April of 2029. There's so much fatigue in the community around these issues and the ballpark. I'll tell you what's not in crisis, and that's the baseball operations side of the Tampa Bay Rays. They've won more games with the least amount of dollars spent than any team in baseball over the last 12 years.
Welcome to the Hunks Talking Junk podcast, where we're talking all things leadership, branding, and culture. I'm Nick Friedman, the host, founder of College Hunks Hauling, Junk, and Moving. We started with one beat-up cargo van, and now we're operating a $300 million franchise organization with 200 locations across the country. I started this podcast to help bring real leaders and tangible takeaways that you can bring into your world as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, or as a franchise owner. So I'm excited to introduce our guest today. We've got Ken Babby, the new CEO of the Tampa Bay Rays, Major League Sports team. Appreciate you being here, brother.
Great to see you, bud.
Obviously honored to be here. We're a longtime friend. We know each other through the Young Presidents Organization, YPO. I mean, you're living the dream. You're like, I feel like every kid, if you can't play professional sports, owning a sports team is probably even better. How did you get into sports? How did you, go, obviously, for those who don't know you or don't know your journey, share a little bit about how you went from an advertising executive essentially to a sports team owner and now a major league sports team owner and CEO.
Well, the real dream was to be a Major League Baseball player. And, I say this all the time. Everybody's dream ends at a different age. Mine ended sometime around maybe my 10th or my 11th birthday when I realized I didn't have the physical ability to ever make the major leagues. And the second best thing to that was to be, part of a group and buying a major league team. Baseball has been in my blood since as far back as I can remember. My father was a general counsel for the Baltimore Orioles baseball team when the Camden Yards development were both DC guys.
Yeah.
And remember, we didn't have a baseball team in Washington growing up, but we had the Orioles in Baltimore, and they were building a ballpark. And I had a front row seat to that as a kid growing up, watching my dad as a lawyer negotiate the deals and the player deals and developing the site and what became, we think, the ballpark that changed baseball all the way back in 1992.
Yeah, I remember
his career went on to the player side, representing players as an agent in the NBA, Tim Duncan, Grant Hill, Shane Battier. For me, my career really was mostly in media. I spent 15 years at the Washington Post in our hometown and had an opportunity to run our digital business, to build our advertising and marketing business. And my passion was always to get back into baseball. And late 2012, stepped away from the Post. Jeff Bezos bought our company. Had to go figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, and decided at that moment I was going to put everything I can into building our baseball business.
Amazing. And so you started with the minor leagues, which I guess like an athlete, you start and build from the ground up, or a business owner or a founder. So how'd you get into the minor leagues? And then we'll talk about how you got to be the involved in this amazing organization.
The journey is very much like that of a player. My first team was in Akron, Ohio, the rubber city capital of the world. If you've never been to Akron, you should. I don't recommend it during the cold weather months, but the summers in Ohio are awesome. And, through a friend, found out of a great ballpark in a, small Midwestern city that had a lot of opportunity. The community loved sports. It was passionate about baseball, but just didn't have the right ownership and leadership around the team to cultivate great fan experience, to bring people together. And so we often use baseball as a platform to do good, to do well in the community. And I thought that if you brought the right people together with the right energy and the right ideas, we could do that. And so we bought our first team as a family in the end of 2012. I uprooted my life. I left DC after virtually being there my entire life. I had a 2-year-old son and started to build that business, ticket by ticket, literally going door to door, selling season tickets, selling sponsorships, sort of selling the dream of what we were going to be able to do. I remember when we first bought the team, I think they had 111 season ticket holders in a ballpark that sat, about 8,000 people in this Midwestern town. It was the dead of winter, and I was there trying to talk about fireworks and baseball and ice cream and all that we were trying to create as the AA affiliate then of the Cleveland Indians. And that journey really is really where it began for me. And I realized that through hard work, our business is not the most sophisticated. We're not curing cancer. We're not putting a man on the moon. We're selling experience, right? We're selling heart. We're selling memories, and we're doing it through the channel of the game of baseball, which has been my passion my whole life. And so that journey started in Akron. About maybe 7 years later, ended up in Jacksonville, Florida, with our second team. Became AAA. We owned those two teams until really, Nick, about 2 weeks ago when we sold Akron and Jacksonville, as we stepped into this new journey of and being honored to own, Tampa's hometown baseball team.
Yeah, it's incredible. And obviously, as a Tampa native now myself, I can claim it. I've been here almost 20 years.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the Rays story, and kind of it seemed like every other year there was a headline about ownership or stadium or both. And, up until recently, as you guys became officially, I guess, sort of crowned the new ownership group, it was always kind of the rumor mill, whether it was in the press or just through friends.
Yeah.
So, like, maybe give a little bit of insider baseball for the listeners. Like, how did you put this group together successfully? How much competition was there? How many times did the deal die and you think it wasn't going to happen? Like, how does all that come together? And I guess, you're championing this whole thing, and you've got all these different pieces of the puzzle you're trying to fit together. You've got Major League Baseball, you've got the existing owners, you've got the different cities and counties, and then, of course, the fan base and the media. Right. And then, of course, you've got your partners that you're bringing in and trying to put all the, pieces together to make it work.
I'm overwhelmed just listening to it. So,
I'm overwhelmed thinking about it. I don't know how you did it.
So the truth of it is, we saw a problem, right? I think a lot of us have seen, there's been no secret that the Tampa Bay Rays have been searching for this quote unquote forever home for nearly 21 years. You can actually go back and watch on YouTube, and we did, the Stu Sternberg opening press conference when he bought the Rays at the Vinoy Hotel in St. Pete. And it wasn't the first question, but the second question, when he bought the team, started asking him about building a ballpark, which is an amazing thing, because at that point, Tropicana Field really wasn't that old, but it was immediately recognized as having limitations, not being the right kind of configuration for baseball, maybe or maybe not in the right location. And those questions are nearly that old. And so, look, we've had the fortune of working alongside Stu and Matt Silverman and the team who I've known for, a couple of years now. And we always just sort of said, and I'll talk about how our group came together, if there was never an opportunity to get involved, we'd love to do that. And we watched as they were down a path to build a ballpark in St. Pete, and didn't really think that there was going to be a pathway forward. And to be totally frank, and I love to sort of peel the onion back and share this with everybody, we didn't think there was a pathway forward here in Tampa Bay. We were looking at other teams. We were looking at other opportunities. Our group really is a function of relationships that I've been fortunate to have throughout baseball, throughout the communities I've served. Patrick Zalupski, a home builder, Dream Finders Homes, our control person and the managing partner of our group, I met through my ownership of the Jumbo Shrimp in Jacksonville. He was building his company, great home building company throughout the country, and we met through a chamber trip, through mutual friends, as his company was growing, as he was building that. Bill Cosgrove, our co-chairman, who I think I've known through Akron now nearly 15 years. And Bill and I first met at a lunch. I'll never forget it, at the Fairlawn Hilton Hotel in Akron, Ohio. And we got together for lunch, and I thought I was selling him a sponsorship package. I had showed up prepared with my PowerPoint deck and my plan to sell him 2 outfield billboards and like a fireworks night. And he said, "Ken, put that away." And I'll never forget this. And this was, nearly 10 years ago now. And he said, I'm here to talk about something else. I want to put together a group and buy a Major League Baseball team. And, that had always been my vision. That had always been my plan. But I didn't have the right people to do it. Mm-hmm. And through Patrick, through Bill, through this incredible group of folks that have really solidified here in the region, we have a really special group that came together to do this. And I'm humbled and honored to be in this position. But I think we have incredible, we'll talk about it, but we have incredible work. It is daunting, and some days, honestly, overwhelming to look at the mountain that we have to climb. Look, I've said this, in North America, at least in my eyes, there's not a professional sports team, Nick, that is in more crisis and has more headwinds than the Tampa Bay Rays.
Wow.
Our current ballpark got destroyed by a hurricane. We have no forever future ballpark. We're headed into the waves of a lot of tough labor discussions and dynamics in baseball that have been covered that need to be addressed. And we've got a changing ecosystem in media around regional sports networks.
Mm-hmm.
All of that happening, and there's no better place in the world and no better sport I'd love to be doing this in with our group right here in Tampa Bay. We believe in it. We believe the city deserves this. We believe the community deserves this. And we believe baseball deserves a forever home right here in the region. And we're committed to making that happen.
It's amazing. Amazing. I got goosebumps
Yeah.
thinking about all that. I mean,
It's awesome.
Most folks would look at that mountain and run the opposite direction,
Yeah.
or, crawl under the bed and put a pillow over your head. But I mean, if you think about that, the how much does resourcefulness and just pure grit and belief in what it is that you're creating? I mean, obviously I think about, what I tell our business owners, our franchise owners, what I tell, people that are aspiring to be in leadership positions. You've got to have this long-term vision, work it back to the present, have, amazing people around you, and then just have this unwavering, almost maniacal sense of commitment to getting it done. I mean, is that pretty much what it boils down to?
In every single case, and I tell our folks this all the time. I said this to our guys in Jacksonville and Akron. I say it now to our team in Tampa. In no case am I ever the smartest person in any room that I'm in, ever. But I can look anybody in the eye and tell you I'm going to outwork anybody in that room. And that's part of the culture. That's part of the DNA that we bring. And this special group of people that wake up every day and are committed to climbing that mountain. I look to my left and my right with my partners. I look to my left and my right with our leadership team. I look at the nucleus of people throughout the community, the sort of tentacles that we've been able to build throughout the broader Tampa Bay region relatively quickly. I'm not from here. Patrick's not from here. Bill's not from here. But we've quickly worked to be able to solidify real meaningful relationships that are going to change the way we operate because of our work ethic, because of the way that we're committed. It's almost like a conviction. It's a deep, burning conviction to see, as you said, see that future, work your way all the way back, and every day work that mile marker. We're not going to get all the way up the hill today, tomorrow, or even by the end of the year, but we know where we want to be, and we're constantly plotting that out and looking back down the hill and say, all right, we've made it 2 steps up.
Yeah.
We'll go 2 more tomorrow. We'll go 2 more the next day. And we're going to keep working every single day until we accomplish that dream. And it's not just building the ballpark, right? It's building a development. It's winning a championship, right? This is we are committed and almost convicted. There's a conviction around this
that
we're really excited about.
So I won't paint you into a corner of, although it would help the podcast go viral if we can send this to ESPN and Bleacher Report. But as far as the stadium goes, what are all the dynamics that have to go into that, right? You've got county, you've got tax implications, you got everybody in their, mother throwing in their opinion on social media about where they think it should go. Keep it in.
Literally, my mother does send me her opinion of where the ballpark should go. So that literally is true.
Ybor, Fairgrounds, HCC, move it to Orlando. Take it somewhere else. Sell, move it to a completely different cities. Oh, they're going to put it in Jacksonville. So without necessarily dispelling rumors, like what has to take place with all those conversations for you guys to sort of help land the plane for your vision, for the team, for the fans, and everything else?
Well, I'll take you in. So we buy the team. We've worked, a year nonstop to buy the team, and we took up a sort of a position that we would stop for a minute and sort of take a look and learn and do some analysis, or we could have said, no, we're running up the hill right away. Those were sort of the 2 choices. Most people buy a team, they sit back, you have a nice press conference, you tell people, oh, we're going to take a deep breath, we're just honored to be here, which we are, and we'll come back to you sometime late in 2026 as we think about those things. That's just not how we're wired. And honestly, there's so much fatigue in the community around these issues and the ballpark and where's it going to be, that we just felt like we needed to be really honest with the community that, look, here's the problem we're trying to solve. Here are the people who are committed to try and solve it. Here's the criteria. I thought Patrick did a great job right out of the gate of talking about, look, we need a site that's larger than 100 acres. We're looking to build not just a ballpark, but a mixed-use development. We're looking to create a really incredible experience that has, work, live, play dynamics to it. We're looking to create jobs. We're looking to bring Fortune 500 companies right here into the Tampa Bay region. And so as we start to think about that criteria of what's possible, you start to look at a blueprint of what's out there. And we spend a lot of time, and we talk about this publicly on The Battery in Atlanta, which everybody should check out. It's probably the singular best comparison we can find right now in North America to what building a community looks like. Nick, this is like building a theme park or a district in the middle of your city. And the jobs impact and the economic impact and the tax growth and all the things that kind of revenues that come from that are remarkable. So the first set of criteria is we need space. We need 100 acres to build a ballpark, to build that development, to build that city. We need a great public-private partnership, right? We're going to do our part. We're going to write a big check. We already wrote a big one to buy the team. We're going to write another one to build a ballpark. But we need a great public-private partnership where the community, whether it be the county or the city or both, the state, all come together to build something really special here for Tampa Bay. And that's how we're thinking about it. We're in those discussions. We're talking with a lot of folks. We're doing feasibility analysis on a bunch of different sites. And, I think 2026 will be an important year in that work. Look, the other thing we said in our criteria is we don't have time to waste, right? We intend to open a new ballpark by April of 2029.
Wow.
And we didn't just pick that date, right? We watched our peer teams. The Oakland A's are moving to Las Vegas. They broke ground this year in 2025 as we're recording this, and they're going to open in April of 2028. And so we're following that same trajectory and moving that path forward. And I can tell you, I think Tampa Bay deserves this. I believe we're going to be successful here. Conversations have been really positive. I think there's great sort of burning desire to figure this out. And, hopefully we'll have more to share early in 2026.
Amazing. Now let's talk about maybe from a leadership perspective. You've got so many sort of constituents as a professional sports organization. I think about in business, like we have employees, we have customers, and in our case, we have franchise owners. I mean, you've got players, you've got fans, you've got your executive team, you've got the folks that work the ballpark facilities. Talk about sort of how do you lead, especially as a new leader stepping in where maybe there's been sort of uncertainty leading up to this. And, I always say in the absence of information, people make up their own assumptions. So it sounds like you guys have done a great job of just, reinforcing the vision and your commitment. And I think the fact that you've got an entrepreneurial executive team and ownership group, speaks volumes to what the potential really is going forward. Because obviously entrepreneurs have this, unwavering optimism and commitment to getting stuff done. But talk about sort of your leadership approach and maybe how that's evolved from being in a corporate job at Washington Post to being a executive owner at a minor league team to now the most prominent position you can be in Major League Sports.
Well, thank you. I think the key is surrounding yourself with the right people. Oftentimes the leader, CEO, unduly gets a lot of the credit when things go well. Look, I've seen it from within large public companies where I've served as a senior executive, and then working in a really small environment with 27 people on staff of the Akron Rubber Ducks in Akron, Ohio. And the truth is, large or small, major league, minor league, massive city, small community, the dynamics at play are the same. It's treating people with respect. It's communicating well. It's having alignment on a vision. Everybody needs to know where we're going, right? When I sit around our senior circle group here in Tampa, many of folks who've been here for 10 years plus, what they're thirsty for is direction, a vision, not direction of, hey, go do this or send that email to Bill or do this to Steve.
Where are we going?
Where are we going? And I look in their eyes as I try to the best of my ability to paint a picture of where I think this franchise ought to be, should be. And I've invited all of them, as a leadership team on this train with us.
Yeah.
The other part of it is we're working really hard. It's a lot of late nights. I literally just saw a Zoom invite for a meeting on Christmas afternoon, right as I was walking in here. That's not, Nick, that's not for everybody.
I think that I was gonna say I think that's what
It's
some
not
people
for
don't
everybody.
understand is like a lot of people assume like, oh, you make it, you're rich, you're successful, you can just kind of put your
Yeah.
feet up and chill. But like there's a burning hunger within you and your group
Yeah.
to work.
This also, in sports, it's interesting. There's also a responsibility. So look, this is Tampa's team. This is Tampa Bay's team. We may own it. I may sign the checks at the end of the month. But the truth of the matter is, we're community stewards.
Mm,
And being a steward of a community asset like a sports team comes with a great deal of responsibility on our shoulders to do what's right. And that's on the field and off the field, whether I'm working alongside Eric Neander on helping secure a free agent to not let him go to the Yankees or the Red Sox, which we spent a lot of time on, a lot more this week of late, but also trying to figure out our ballpark and having conversations with partners in the community that we're going to try and build a business saying, look, we're going to do our part, but we need your support too.
yeah.
We can't do this on our own. So unlike, if you and I were selling office supplies together, it'd be really hard to talk about community stewardship of selling staplers and paper clips and pens when you're in the lens of professional sports. And this is true in minor leagues, major leagues, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball. There's a public lens that these teams are looking at, that every move you're making is watched. At the end of the day, though, these are small businesses, high-profile small businesses, certainly in our case with challenged economics, and we want to deliver for our fans.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, yes, I want to deliver for our partners. I want to deliver for baseball. I want to deliver for the community. Fans of the Tampa Bay Rays deserve what we're trying to build
Yeah.
on and off the field. And that, at the end of the day, will be the scoreboard that I look at and look at the success looking back, 5, 10, 15 years
Yeah.
from now.
I mean, some of the things you're saying, I can relate to. I think is just sort of the pattern of success that I've seen over and over is having a long-term vision, having a purpose of making an impact, making a difference for the folks that are touched, whether it's the community, the fans, the players, the team, and then just reinforcing that vision through repetition, through communication, through leadership and empowerment of your folks. How do you assess talent? Obviously, I use a lot of sports team analogies in our business. I'm like, we need players that can perform on the field and in the locker room. We need folks that have a high ceiling. To move from the minor leagues of baseball to the majors, you've got to be a rock star at the minor leagues, and there's got to be an opening in the majors. So, like, you're doing it both in real life sports and on the executive level, all the way down to the folks selling the concessions in the stadium or showing people where their seats are. Like, how do you define what it is that you're looking for, and in any position, whether it's in the boardroom or on the ballpark, and then how do you hold those folks accountable to the performance metrics while also making sure they align with the culture that you're building?
Well, your question's awesome because we're 90 days into ownership. And so a lot of the work that we're doing inside the building as we think about this, particularly on the business side, is about looking at each other and talking about the standards, the performance standards. I'm not talking about core values here, although we did that work too around integrity and the way we think about that. What I'm talking about are performance standards. Performance standards are when you and I make a commitment that I'm going to do something, that I can look you in the eyes. And not only do you know I'm going to do it, but you said, boy, when Ken says he's going to do something, he does it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When I look to our director of sales here at the team, and I said, I want you to give me 25 challenging clients, ticket holders that have not renewed. And I want you to do that every Friday afternoon because I'm going to pick up the phone and make those calls.
Wow.
I'm looking in his eye. This is a young guy who's been with the company a long time. Here's the CEO of the team, an owner of the team, making a commitment that I'm going to do that. Now, the competitive part of me is I'm going to go convert all 25 of those, and that's not reality, right? And truth be told, it's really humbling for me to get on the phone, and great perspective for me to get on the phone with a family and understand why they aren't renewing their tickets. I'm certainly going to work really hard to convince them that, boy, this is an exciting time. You want to be part. There's really no better time to be a fan of the Tampa Bay Rays.
Mm-hmm.
But that commitment that I've made to my peer, he knows I'm the boss. He knows that, I'm the guy in charge at running the company. But it's not like that. In that dynamic, we're partners. And so if I tell him I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And if he tells me he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And we're going to have that understanding. And as we build the bridge of those standards and that we agree this is the way that we're going to work as a company, one by one, relationships change, trust gets built, and people can then start to experience the success of those results. But it takes time.
Yeah.
It took me nearly 15 years to build that culture at my last business. It took me 14 years to have that culture at the Washington Post. And it's very hard to do it overnight.
Yeah.
That said, I think to our earlier point, I think people are learning, Nick, that this is a place where we're going to run really hard and really fast. And when I talked about that train and coming on board this train, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's okay, right? Like, first of all, we need to make sure everybody's on the right seat on the train, but we also need to make sure we get the right people on the train with us. And if this is not for them, if not, and again, it's really exciting. We want people here. There's some really good people that have been part of this organization, but it's not for everybody, and that's all right.
Yeah, now, that's a great way to look at it. I mean, setting those high standards. I mean, I think of a Nick Saban. It's the standards you set that dictate and define the culture. In his case, when he was with Alabama football, in this case, the standards you're setting for the Tampa Bay Rays. And I would imagine that standard is going to translate into the actual product itself on the ball field. Where the players and the coaches and the trainers all carry themselves with that same level of standard, which starts at the top.
We're really lucky. I talk about the team being in crisis. I talk about the ballpark dynamics, the business dynamics. I'll tell you what's not in crisis, and that's the baseball operations side of the Tampa Bay Rays. Eric Neander and his team are the best at what they do in Major League Baseball. In fact, that's not just my opinion as an owner of the team. That's fact, right? They've won more games with the least resources, with the least amount of dollars spent than any team in baseball
How
in
do
the
they
last
do
12
that?
years.
I mean,
Well, that's the magic, right? And I'm trying to figure that out too. And I think
so. Is it Moneyball? Is it analytics?
These guys are incredibly disciplined. They're very smart, also incredibly hardworking. I mean, there's a whole floor of our building in St. Pete. And I have to be honest, there's days I walk down there, the lights are a little bit darker. It's almost like they talk a different language. I don't ask too many questions. Whatever they're doing there is working.
Yeah.
And we made one rule when we bought the team, and that's that we weren't going to interfere with baseball ops. And what my job is to support them. I build a budget alongside Eric. I guide him as we're thinking about player moves. But at the end of the day, we're learning from them.
Yeah.
And what they need, right? I'm a big Jim Collins fan. I know you love to read different business books. Jim Collins has a model where he talks about the flywheel, right?
That's the theme of our franchise conference this year, by the way.
Well, there you go.
Glad you brought that up.
So I'm a huge fan of Jim Collins' flywheel, and I will send you, and you can share this with folks listening. So I presented to our executive advisory board and our leadership team the Tampa Bay Rays flywheel 2 weeks ago, and it's not complicated, right? It's deliver a world-class experience and competitive on-field project, attract a greater audience, and bring people that want to be partners and support the team, reinvest back into the operation. And that gets that, as Jim Collins calls that, crickety old flywheel moving.
Yeah.
And once you start to do that and reinvest back in the team, the flywheel starts to move and starts to glide. And it's going to take a few cycles of getting that thing turning. And so my principal job is to get that flywheel moving, to create resources for Eric to be able to do his job at the highest level so that we don't have to stare up the mountain at the Yankees and the Red Sox every year.
Yeah, I love it. What's your thoughts on, you've got the Savannah Bananas phenomenon, and I think you probably pulled some of those elements into your minor league experience because it really is about creating just an entertaining product. So talk about the fan experience side of things. And then, I mean, is that stuff good for baseball? Is it a distraction? Is it competitive?
I think it's phenomenal for baseball. I mean, Jesse Cole is a friend. He should be on this podcast, by the way. I will tell you that Jesse has challenged the social norms of the game of baseball by exposing, for lack of the better words, the aspects of our game that are perceived as boring. Right, the games are too long. That fans should be more involved. Right? Did you know at a Savannah Bananas game, if a fan catches a ball, it counts as an out? I mean, that's one of like 13 crazy rules.
Yeah.
Now, we probably aren't going to do that in Major League
Right.
Baseball, but there's a lot of things around technology that we can be doing. You're going to see the automatic ball strike system in Major League Baseball next year. We've seen it in the minor leagues for the last 3 to 4 years. It's been incredibly successful. And I think what the Bananas have showed is that baseball needed a resurgence of fun, right? And that going to baseball should be not just a game, a social experience, of which it is, but a lot of fun and bringing people together. And, that starts with great fan experience. Now, they do a lot of things that I take my father-in-law to see the Savannah Bananas, which we've had multiple times, both in Jacksonville and Akron, and they've been here in Tampa, as you know. And it's not for everybody, right? They're lighting things on fire, the pitcher's on stilts. We're not doing that at the Tampa Bay Rays. We're a Major League Baseball team.
Right.
But I will tell you that if you look at inspiration, and Jesse has a journal, and every day he talks publicly about writing 5 ideas down that are going to keep the business fresh, that's going to keep fans galvanized and excited about this product.
Yeah.
5 ideas every single day, and he does it, and he publishes it. That's a healthy way for any business owner to think, whether we work in baseball, whether we're in your business, whether we're selling office supplies. And I think a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this too, just sort of rest on their laurels and say, I'm just going to keep doing it the same way we've done it. And that's where you fail.
Yeah.
That when you keep doing the same thing every single day, first of all, to me, that's no fun. But that's when you fail.
Yeah. How about from a branding standpoint, the Tampa Bay Rays? I mean, you talked about the standards. You talked about sort of your leadership approaches. What do you want the brand to represent and to people think? Like I always say, when people see our trucks, I want them to think all is well in the world. When you see that orange and green truck, you should put a smile on your face.
And I do.
You know what it stands for.
I do.
Or the story behind it. Or maybe
I also always say that's my buddy's business, and I'm proud of him. And he's built something that's it's everywhere. I mean, it's really, we are not a national business yet, right? I do see Rays things around, but predominantly Major League Baseball is a regional business here in Tampa. We are going to change that, maybe a global business someday. But what I see when I see your trucks is pride for my friend. And when we see, a great brand out in the wild, that's how we feel. We feel a connection. So when we launched the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp brand, and folks may laugh about our minor league team names like the Jumbo Shrimp and the Rubber Ducks, that brand not only took over a city, but it was sold within 30 days in all 50 states.
Wow.
You could see it all over the country. People that had served in the military in Jacksonville wanted that J Shrimp hat. They wanted that tough, gritty duck in Akron because it signaled the hardworking people that worked in those rubber plants, people's grandparents, people's family members. And so you try and galvanize a community by telling a story. And that's what we did in those 2 cities. And, I'll never forget it. My son, Josh is now 17.
Wow.
But when he was younger, we took a trip to New York about a month after Jacksonville became the Jumbo Shrimp. And we got off the train at Penn Station in New York. And they're in the middle of New York City. Exciting. It's vibrant. There's people everywhere. And as we went up the escalator at Penn Station into the city, there was a guy with a backwards Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp hat in New York City, like 30 days after we launched the brand. And Josh was too young. I'd love to tell you we had this like great Harvard Business Review conversation about branding and marketing. We didn't. But I'll tell you this, it really made me realize what building a brand means. The Washington Post is a brand. It means something globally. I was a part of seeing that when you put that mark somewhere, forget politics, that meant authentic journalism
Mm-hmm.
because the Washington Post said it was true, and that meant something. Those brands in the minor leagues meant something. The Tampa Bay Rays have an incredibly strong brand locally. People love it. And we've got to build it and make it more authentic and bring a story that moves a long time in the continuity of that Rays brand. And don't forget, we've got the Tampa Bay Rowdies that we own too, the soccer
That's
team.
right.
And we've got a whole story. We could do another podcast on them.
Yeah,
and,
we'll have to have
and
you back on
a
that one.
story on that as well. So we've got work ahead of us for sure.
I'm in the franchise business, right? I mean, we have 200 independent operators of the College
Yeah.
Hunks franchise. In that case, they're operating our same brand in a different city. You're a Major League Baseball franchise owner, operator. Talk about sort of the dynamics of being an owner of a team of a Major League Sports league. So you've got the league dynamics, you've got your colleagues, I guess you'd call them, which are also your competitors in your case versus, in our case, we're kind of playing the same sport and not competing with one another. But how much of the playbook is shared with how to run a successful franchise? How much is sort of close to the chest? We don't want you to know our secret sauce.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. And some of this is perception that people might be surprised by. So we compete like hell with the other teams on the field every day for players to have that edge, to win 162 times a year plus playoffs and spring training. The baseball season, right? Pitchers and catchers report in mid-February. So our Rays players will show up at spring training. And if we're doing our job really well, we're playing to the end of October in the World Series. And so it's a long season. We spend a lot of time together. We compete. Sometimes it gets tense with our other 29 teams. Off the field, we're partners. We share revenue together at the national level. We try and look for ways to grow the game to get more people. Just yesterday afternoon, sitting in Hal Steinbrenner's office right here in Tampa talking baseball, and he's the owner and control person of the New York Yankees. We ought to hate each other. It couldn't be further from the truth. Hal's been warm, welcoming. His family has deep roots here in Tampa. They're helping us try and think about how we're thinking about this ballpark dynamic. They couldn't be warmer to us. And that's been true for every other team in baseball too. And so we compete, we share ideas, we do share a playbook. If somebody finds a piece of technology on the business side that's going to help somebody sell a partnership or tickets differently or thinking differently about the business, we share that openly. On the baseball side, it's totally cutthroat and competitive. But when we get together and break bread, we just had our owners' meetings in New York, attended my very first Major League owners meeting.
Wow.
I sat around, I looked to the left and right of me. These were my heroes growing up, right? Steinbrenner and John Henry and Jerry Reinsdorf, who owns the White Sox, who's in his 90s. I mean, he's sitting 3 feet from me. To my left is Steve Cohen, the owner of the New York Mets, right? You've got the Dodgers guys behind us. And I sat there and I couldn't believe, Nick, I mean, you talk about goosebumps. One, that I'd made my way with my partners in this room. But I also felt that the other 29 owners really are our partners, and they're helping us, and they're rooting for us. They're not rooting for us on the field. They want to beat us badly 162 times a year. But on terms of growing the Tampa Bay Rays business, that relationship's phenomenal.
How about the speed of evolution in just in sports in general? I mean, gaming has taken over, right? Betting, you've got all these sort of mini controversies that have bubbled up, and then AI, and you mentioned the automated pitching, strike zone, replay and everything else. And I imagine, those sort of things are just going to be faster and faster. And you've got the traditionalists that are like, the game shouldn't change. It's probably this ebb and flow of like, how much and how fast should things evolve versus how much do we, kind of put guardrails? And do you have any perspective on how you manage through those changes and evolutions?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's two lenses. There's this sort of the game of baseball and its sort of adoption of technology. And the game traditionally, by the way, this is your grandfather's sport. And there's purists that believe baseball should never change and that we should continue to do things exactly the same way. And look, that same thinking I had a front row seat to with the newspaper business. Not too many people are buying ink on paper newspapers anymore. You have to pivot. You have to evolve. We had to figure out the digital business. We had to build a video business at the Washington Post. We had to be active in mobile to understand how people were going to consume information in this new world. The same thing's true with baseball. That viewpoint that we just need to keep running 9 guys on the field and playing the game the same way, not worried about the pace, not worried about, technology. The automatic ball strike zone is just one example. We want to be in the business of being right with our game, right? The NFL does this really well. The NBA does this exceptionally well and has probably led all of sports in thinking about how video replay works, how authentic we are about time clock management and all these different pieces. So I think you'll see over the course of time, baseball will evolve. At the end of the day, Nick, we're in the baseball business. We're in the media business. We're soon to be in the real estate business, right? We're in a bunch of different things that sort of make up the Tampa Bay Rays enterprise. And we've got a lot of work ahead of that mountain that we talked about. But I couldn't be more humbled to be leading it.
Amazing. And the last kind of question, just from a culture standpoint, we talked about leadership, branding, and the performance standards that you set. You also talked about it taking 15 years for some of those things to take hold. You've got all these sort of folks expecting immediate results, whether it's they want an answer on the stadium or they want the team to win the World Series next year. So how do you balance sort of the immediacy of expectations with developing a world-class, sustainable culture?
I think in those moments where you feel we talked about the performance standards and how hard we're working and we're all human, right? This is hard work. For me, it's helpful to just come back to the why and why we're doing this. And, for me personally, it's my love of the game of baseball, right? It's growing up, coming down here for spring training and coming to St. Petersburg and, running around with my dad on Al Lang Stadium. And I was the bat boy for the Orioles. And the game is my why. Now, the why for different people is different things, and that's okay. But I look around. I had a mentor, a guy who used to say, look, Kenny, they called me Kenny as I was a kid. Now that's out there. Right, exactly. We work in the toy factory of life, right? Like I get to wake up every day and go to a ballpark and look at green grass and see kids happy with their grandparents at the ballpark and be able to provide experiences and compete to win a World Series. Like what's greater than that? And so on those tough moments, and there are a lot of them in this business, I would posit that whatever bad days we're having really aren't so bad and relative to other things that people are dealing with, and trying to create that experience for people is why we're here.
Amazing. Well, congratulations on the realization of your childhood dream. Thank you for your friendship and mentorship through, that I've had the pleasure to know you for, I think, almost a decade at YPO, Young Presidents Organization. I have no doubt that the vision you set for this team is going to be eclipsed and beyond. I look forward to celebrating the World Series and the ribbon cutting of the future stadium and everything else.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, brother.
Proud of you, but thank you, man.
Thank you. Well, before we break, I've got some. Some official Hunk swag, including our
first championship ring. I love it.
Yep. So,
oh my God,
you can put that next to your World Series ring.
I love it
when you're done with it. But I got some hats for Josh and
amazing,
and
man.
The missus as well.
Thank you so much, buddy.
Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you
man.
so much. Yeah, man. Thanks.
So that was another episode of Hunks Talking Junk. Be sure to subscribe, tune in, share, and we'll keep it moving. Thank you.